But let's bring in one big story that seems to have taken a backseat most of, towards the end of last year. The SEC, the markets regulator, is speaking up very strongly on the moves being made to have commodities exchanges registered to those who have been registered or licensed and registered, and what it all means for deepening the financial market, financial inclusion, and providing an alternative investment window to investors. So Akin Yinka is joining us from our Abuja studios. He's the Vice President in charge of financial markets at FX Commodities Exchange Limited. Good morning, Akin Yinka. It's good to have you on the show this Friday.
Good morning, Brasin. Always a pleasure.
Great. Thank you. It's good to see you again.
Good.
Yeah. So how is business going at FX Commodities? How are you guys moving on this new horizon of commodities exchange, which is the big story? In fact, as we speak this morning, Reuters is reporting that Egypt plans to set up its own commodities exchange within the next 38 weeks.
Yes, I mean, it's been an interesting start of year for us at FX, and if you look at global dynamics, the importances of commodities exchanges cannot be overemphasized, especially when an economy is trying to diversify its sources of funding from the conventional one. So for us at FX, it's been an interesting start to the year. We commenced the year by launching our order management system, which manages, which provides the first step, the first avenue for investors to be able to take positions in commodities markets. Even though this is a novel innovation, and we see it as being pivotal to the growth of commodities in Nigeria. And this is not just a technology innovation from our own part, it's more of a great step in the global dynamics of commodities trading in Nigeria. Over the past years, we've seen efforts by various regulatory organizations and bodies, especially the SEC, to promote investments in commodities by enabling commodities exchanges. And we see this as a critical step in ensuring that this market that is expected to provide alternative investment classes for investors is robust enough, provides the right liquidity, provides transparency, and enables players in the market to take positions appropriately. And we see multiple implications of this, right? You will see growth in the agricultural sector, you'll see liquidity more in the capital market, and you'll see a breadth of investments available to players in the capital market as a whole.
The currencies platform, we have that already. If we talk about equities, yes, we've got that. If we talk about debt, we also have the money market. We have it on Broad Street. So you folks looks like the latest guy, nice guy on the street, wearing nice suits and trying to convince trying to convince investors that, look, you can trade financial papers on commodities. But when we talk about commodities, it's basically agriculture, agro-allied. So how does commodities exchanges, which is being touted very strongly and strongly backed by the SEC, ties into the overall overarching reforms that the government of Nigeria is doing in agriculture and agro-allied processing, the entire value chain or ecosystem, if you want to put it that way?
Yes, even though the commodities landscape spans much more beyond agriculture, we see agriculture as a ready win for us to be able to come into the commodities market as a whole. Now, the drive of the SEC, in line with the federal government's agenda, shows you what could happen when you have federal fiscal policy alignment with private sector drive. I mean, you can't overemphasize the role the SEC has played in ensuring that the commodities market comes to be. The commodities market is quite large, and a lot of people speculate that it's even larger than what we could imagine because it's been largely untapped over the years. And this is due to a lot of factors. Now, if you want investors to come into this market, it's not about convincing them about what needs to be if the infrastructure and the dynamics for them to be able to seamlessly invest is missing in the market. So what we've been doing in line with the SEC, especially the Commodities Market Ecosystem Committee, is to design the appropriate infrastructure that would ensure that when investors come in, the transparency is there for them to be confident to play in the market. the liquidity is there for them to be able to place their assets and then withdraw it anytime they want. And more importantly, there's price discovery. Why do we think price discovery is important? Is because at the core of it, a lot of activities in Nigeria still rides on agriculture. Now, when you have appropriate price discovery, then you see distribution of value appropriately to all players across the value chain, from the processors to the consumers of these processed commodities. So you see stabilization in terms of price of commodities. Over the years, we've underinvested in this sector, and we at FX Commodities Exchange, we see the need that wherein we can bring in retail market players into this market, provide an avenue for institutional investors to also play a role through their brokerage houses. Earlier this week, we launched a novel product, we call it the COMEX, and it's actually a technology innovation that provides access to the market to be able to invest in commodities. This cannot be done without having an alignment with the Securities and Exchange Commission, as well as other key players in the market, because you need all stakeholders to come together, identify the transaction dynamics, and put a structure in place that will give comfort to investors, both institutional and retail.
Well, I'm interested in the retail investors. I'm interested in how you new folks on the block, the commodities exchanges, will help drive financial inclusion, help farmers in the Southwest, in Katsina, those producing tea in Taraba, those who are doing agribusiness in Benue State, all the way across the country. That's what I'm interested in here, Akinyinka. Not the folks like you and I on Broad Street.
If you look at the dynamics of agricultural play, most of the players producing these commodities, the farmers, are mostly financially included, even though they constitute the bulk of the population. But they are still on one side of the whole dynamics, right? So you have the two dynamics, the retail investors and the retail producers, who are the small-scale farmers, who account for over 80% of all production. Now, on the retail production side, which is access to farmers and working with smallholder farmers, this is a critical part of the whole ecosystem, because if the farmers are not financially included, if they don't get value for their produce, there's no way you can guarantee availability of commodities for investors to be able to invest in, for retail players to be able to take positions on. So for us, for the past 4 to 5 years, we've spent a chunk of our time ensuring that the access to the smallholder farmers is clear and is reachable by providing a lot of infrastructure, from access to financial inclusion to building a technology solution that ensures that any commodity traded on the exchange is traceable to the farmer that produces it, right? And then when you have this in place, then you see that the return to the smallholder farmer gets increased. It gets higher because they have access to a ready market. Now, when the smallholder farmers can sell to a ready market, you see prices being readily available for investors to be able to take position. All in all, when you have a commodities trading platform that is functional, you see more farmers being lifted out of poverty, because there are lots of investment assets that retail players could invest in that will go to finance the smallholder farmers and make them more productive. And overall, in the long run, you see the food security of the nation assured, as well as creating a very liquid and dynamic market, both for the farmers and for the retail players as well.
Okay, so Aki, we're starting on the financial services, financial papers, trading part of the ecosystem when it comes to commodities exchange. We need to have a brick and mortar spot commodities market on the ground in Nigeria. Agriculture, of course, looks like the lower hanging fruit. We have the metals still out there. How soon and how quick do you think the government needs to move quickly to bring this on board to assist those of you who are lifting this up at the other end, from the financial market street to the brick and mortar commodities exchange, where we can have spot prices from some or almost all of the commodities that we produce here in Nigeria, perhaps including someday our premium crude oil brands, 7 of them.
So I mean, for us and for players in the market, you see the body language of the government is directed towards promoting agriculture, which is very, very encouraging. And that is why the drive from the SEC is very encouraging. And from the SEC is not just encouraging, it's very inclusive, because you see the Securities and Exchange Commission very hands-on in promoting commodities exchange. Now, in terms of making the spot prices readily available, making the markets readily very liquid, it's the commodities market is very large, and we need to know that it's a step at a time. So we launched the trading platform, order management system, and the order management system provides access to real-time prices, right? If you go to our website, you see prices of key agricultural products, commodities, readily available for players, investors to take position on. Even though this looks like a small step, it's a great step forward because in the grand scheme of things, when you look at the agricultural sector and you can put sanity around the price of commodities, it will seamlessly flow across all other asset classes because they are far much more easier than agriculture. Now, do you need the government to play directly on the exchange? Maybe not. Do you need the government to provide enabling environments for the exchange to operate in? Yes. And we've seen a lot of that in terms of the policies they've put in place that goes to encourage local production of commodities as well as promoting players, more players, to come into the agricultural sector. Over the last 4 years, we've seen increase in participants in the sector, and we've seen great innovation and technological advances that has prompted international agencies to start looking inward and partnering with Nigeria in terms of promoting agriculture and taking it forward. Once we have this fixed through the efforts of government in alignment with the private sector, then the only way is to increase the breadth of commodities available on the exchange for trading, and the dynamics will just follow the same process that we've built for the agricultural spot prices. So right now, if you go to FX Commodities Exchange platform, you'll see spot prices for six of the key commodities readily traded and very liquid in the Nigerian markets. And with that, you can even start taking positions on the exchange.
What are these 6 products, Aki?
So for us, the key ones are maize, soybean, paddy rice, sorghum, cocoa, and ginger.
In terms of expanding what is possible, we're talking about warehouse receipts and what have you. Give it a bit more explanation here to the man on the street as to how to get in on this transaction. Because sometimes when we talk about things like this on television, some folks believe it's for those of us who study accounting, perhaps business finance, investment bankers and all that, and they believe that we are making money on their heads because they don't understand it. So break it down. If I have an app, I go on the system, I have one right in front of me, web-enabled. How do I go about this? Because I want the ordinary man to have an idea. How much does he have, should he have in his account or in his pocket to play the commodities market in Nigeria right now, and I mean today?
So we, together with our team of technology developers, we sat down and we contemplated what the retail players would need. And one of the key things we discovered was the retail players need comfort in the system. So we designed the system such that with as little as 10,000 naira, these players could come on board and take position on commodities. Now, what are the intricacies? One of the key learnings we got over the past years when we've been piloting the system is the retail player doesn't care about where the commodity is stored. He needs comfort in holding assets to the commodities. So we developed the technology suite that ensures that when the physical commodities is in any of our registered warehouses, a warehouse receipt is created on top of that product, and then the product is available to be bought or sold by players in the market. Now, the retail market is not going to take ownership of the commodities in any of our warehouse because he is interested in incremental returns on the commodities. So once anybody logs into our platform, ComEx, they readily see commodities available for purchase or for sales. They can buy anyone, and once they have anyone, automatically a contract note is issued to them that gives them rights to that commodities. If they want to take ownership of it, which is not likely, they can do that. But the idea is they easily invest in it, have a contract note that shows ownership, and when it's time to sell, through that same platform, they can issue a sell order. The market is not as liquid as we need it to be, and that is why the discussion with SEC and other players are ongoing. For us, even though we are creating an inclusive approach for retail players, we still believe institutional players will
Okay.
still be the providers of liquidities into this market.
Okay.
And we are really, really working with key stakeholders to ensure that we can bring these institutional players, provide the required liquidity to drive the markets.
Akinyuka Akitoday, Vice President, Financial Markets at FX Commodities Exchange Limited. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. We'll continue this conversation some other day. We're back in 2 minutes, everyone. Let's get back to the big Boa Cement listing. We're trying to drill down on the details.